I want to be comfortable. Sometimes when I'm doing like energy work, I kind of need to like sit back so I can feel comfortable. So there we go. Okay. So just gonna wait for Shannon to jump on here. There he is. Yay! There he is. Tell me, just sent you a request, Shannon, so you just have to accept it.
All
Hello.
right. Hey, how are
Hey.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hold on. I'm just coordinating myself so I can get myself right here before we get started, and then I'm not confused because it's easy to get confused these days.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So you got a
I'm
new
like,
pad?
yes. And that's why I was like, oh, I don't know how to use this thing.
Oh, you figured it out. You figured it
Well,
out.
remember the last time when we were doing channeling on the phone, every time we did it, the
Hmm.
phone would just go crazy. So
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? If I'm going to work with Fernie, I have to have an iPad or otherwise we're not doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
not going to
I was
happen.
I was always like, okay, I hope we're gonna have a good teleconnection because you go into these like energy states and then all of a sudden, I was like, uh-oh, here we go, we're starting. So
Yes. So I've been talking to my new iPad today and saying we are compatible and you can elevate with us and we
yeah,
can be okay. It's all good.
yeah, yeah.
So Freddie, how do I share this to like if I wanted to share it onto my Facebook
Huh?
Instagram page?
Yeah. So you can, let's see, if you wanted to share it. Uh, huh. Good question. Let's see. Good question.
Following.
Actually, do you have, well, do you have
I
your,
can do it off of my
yeah,
iPhone.
do it
I
from your
just
phone. Yeah, do it from your phone because if you try to do it from the pad, then it's gonna kind of be
try to
complicated.
throw me.
Yeah, so if you go to your account and you go to it'll probably allow you to share it, the feed. Do you
Okay.
have to do it off of my, yeah, do it from your phone. Yeah,
Let's
do
do
it
like
from your phone.
that.
If the pad, then it's gonna kind of complicated.
And
Yeah,
just
so if you
will
go
it
to your
just send to
account and you
everybody? I'm learning all this
yeah,
phone
send it to
stuff.
everybody. Yeah, because normally if you go live with someone, if you're the host, it'll send it to all of your followers. But if you're just a guest, I don't know if it sends it to everybody. But I know that if you just can like forward it to everybody, then that'll automatically let them know. And then and because it's on Instagram, your Facebook people, if huh, they would have to. Good question from Facebook. Oh, let's see. Let me see if I can figure that part out. God, it's like telling you, they just need to come
Well,
up with something.
either way, I can pick it up later and pull it over. Either
Okay,
way,
yeah, it's up to you. It's whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to
yeah,
do.
we can do it later. I
Okay.
think that getting this stuff done and I think what we came to do
Yeah.
is going to be interesting. I can say
Yes. Got
that.
it. So let's talk about let's pick up the conversation where we left off when we were messaging each other because that's a good starting point.
Well, right now I do have a heart monitor on. I have 2 more days. They're monitoring it. I did have a couple of events, that I had to do with it. Let's and first off, let's get clear with everything because I had this before the event happened. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
words we can use, so I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
use the event. This came, and this also, I am, I like to call it, I am fully wormed. I
Yay!
am
Yeah.
fully wormed.
Right.
I've had all three because of what they've discovered um, that is going on with me. Let's see. How far do you want to go?
Well,
I'm not sure.
so well, you reached out to me when you reached out to me because you had mentioned that you thought this might be cancer, or this might be something else, and you were having
Yes,
to go in
and
to
that
get some
was what
cells.
we were looking at because one of the things that happened, I did have the event back in February of last year,
Yeah.
and which caused the whole chain of events, which um, in the bigger picture of it, I had been already having things before coming out of the Gulf War,
Yeah.
and already having this, and over years, it's just progressed, and then all of a sudden, here we are
Mm.
in this process, and having it actually, I finally got a diagnosis of what was happening going on.
Yeah.
From a long time ago, they thought I had leukemia, which it is still kind of a form of leukemia because it's called mast cell activation syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the body will create high levels of histamines.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it in your kidneys, you can have it in your lungs, you can have it in your stomach, you can have it in many places. From what I'm understanding and they're saying. So I had to go through a series of things, and they discovered it actually by fluke from having the event, the
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
They did a blood test and found out that my tryptates were high. It's called a tryptates, and they don't
Mm.
test this. It's not a normal test that you would go to the doctor when they go and get it.
Yeah.
So that set off a whole round of events that started occurring with me, and allergy symptoms constantly, like a long hauler stuff. But there's always been this pain in my chest, always, even before happening, and getting told, oh, you got to go see an oncologist, you have to go see this person, they're going to do all these big things to you. And I mean, it really took me down a road of, wait a minute, I actually went into fear. And
Yeah.
I'm a very spiritual person. I've been to the other side. I know what it was. And my human part of me kicked in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It went, whoa, dude. The oncology word got scared.
Mm-hmm.
So in the process, I had reached out to you and I told you, I said, hey, they think I have this. And if this is the deal, I'm going to do chemotherapy. They're talking chemotherapy. And so we were having this conversation back and forth. And I really feel there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things that's happened in my life. I mean, I could really go through a whole big thing. And through this whole past year, it's been about, I guess, my heart being broken, you know. And after seeing the oncologist, he says, well, you have to go see your cardiologist because you really need to have some really big workup done to ensure that the heart itself is okay.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that you said, Shannon, your heart is broke. We're going to work on the broken heart. And then she tells me that, and it's like, okay, Ferny, let's do this. Let's go there. Let's see what is there. I'm not afraid of looking at it, and I'm very open about who I am is, what I'm working with, and why I'm working with what I'm working. So I did do a stress test. I have to wear this, and then on Friday I have to have a echocardiogram, and then they're going to do all of my arteries and veins and everything. Even the cardiologist said that people that have mast cell activation syndrome can have cardiac thickness.
Mm-hmm.
Their heart becomes thicker. And I thought, this is my thought after leaving. I said, that's interesting. When in my life, I've had people in my life that's come in my life or hurt me or used me or been disappointed or my heart is broken. You get a thick heart.
Right.
You get thick-hearted.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's an interesting concept to look at, and I've been sitting with that. It's like, man, do I have a thick heart? Am I being in that place with that? And I thought, okay, Ferny's going to help me get to the bottom of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
going to try.
Funny,
Yeah.
Here's the funny part of it. Before I even connected with you, I had four people, two of them not gifted, psychic, nothing. They were just having a conversation that says, I don't know why you need to talk to Ferny. I don't know why you need to talk to Fernando. Do you know Fernando? I'm like, yeah, I know him. Okay, I'll do it, guys. I got it.
Yeah. Well, they do that. I mean, they do. You know, when there have been instances in the past when I am like confused about something, or I'm trying to figure something out, and I'm just not plugging in, and then I'm guided to someone else that is receptive or open enough to help me. And it's usually been like you, like I was guided back to you after our initial connection, and then like Victoria McSpadden is another person as well. So you get guided or pulled to someone who might just be able to help to kind of make more sense of it, just because we don't always understand things. And especially in the spiritual community, and when you do a lot of healing work, you're so focused on other people's healing that you just forget sometimes that you're still susceptible to similar conditions because you're human. Even if you try your best to take care of yourself, there are still some things that we may not understand we're struggling with that we carry with us.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is very true, because me, I realize this. I'm the warrior. I'm the one that runs in. I don't care if I've been in combat. I've been, in different things. Even now, in my spiritual work, I'm the one that goes in. And if you say, let's go, I'm going in to fight for you. Let's go.
Well, because you're a shield. You're the shield. You're a shield. Yeah.
And I forget to, sometimes I need somebody to fight for me. I need to sit down and go, wait. Hey, Shannon, you got to sometimes let somebody else dance with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest things about this, because when you were telling me about it, and if you thought maybe it might be cancer or leukemia, and I was thinking to myself, and it just all came in. It's like, he's suffering from a broken heart. He needs to mend his heart because it's gotten to a point that is requiring attention and focus. And so it's like, okay, well, this is what we need to work on. And even though you were referring to something completely different, that's the main area that I was fixated on. And I thought to myself, he must be going through what I've been going through this last year, which is, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, and COVID, has been a curse and a blessing all in one, because it has plagued us with so many challenges, and on an individual level, and on a societal level, on a cultural level, on a spiritual level. I mean, it just depends on what perspective you're coming from. But it has also been a revealer of a lot that we needed to be made aware of,
yes,
for ourselves and as a whole. And so it has been a great revealer as well. And so
it has revealed a lot.
Yes, it has. I mean, and I think I have seen so much. I have seen so much in the last year and a half that I did not see before, because of the pandemic, because of COVID, because of individual circumstances of COVID. And so It's been that for me. And so for you, I think when you got it last year, it began this whole journey of really bringing to understanding a lot of things that in your body needed attention. And once you get hit with COVID, as you well know, it takes you down, and you're
I think I was down 6 weeks, because it wasn't a lung for me. It was more neurological.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally would just jerk, body sweats. I never had fever, but I would just sweat. Like, it was the most strangest thing. Heart going. Went to the ER. At the time, they didn't have tests for it. They just said, you got a virus, go home. Okay.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what's going on, but okay. Yeah.
I don't know why your heart is like that. Your blood pressure is high. Your blood sugar's through the roof, but it's okay. Go home.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. And when you're in a situation like that, where it's something, and you can call it Mother Nature or God's force, it's forcing you to confront something, whether you choose to confront it or not. And in this instance, it was forcing you to take a break, take care of yourself. And in the process of taking care of yourself, become aware of what is happening beneath the surface besides COVID. Because COVID was just the first layer of self-awareness with that physical condition. After that, you started to go deeper. And I think that's where some of that was coming from. So.
Yes, I call it being put into my sanctuary to look at myself
Yeah.
and really look at relationship wise, how I am even working. Ferny, I've really cut back even on my work. I haven't,
Yeah.
like the last 3 weeks, I think tomorrow I'm going to do my first person. It's not that and I love doing this.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this. This is my
Mm-hmm.
passion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a fascinating experience with this. How do I explain that in my body? It's there because I look at everything as energy in me, and I can feel this energy that I've been carrying for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when the COVID came and we went into the quietness, it really set off. Oh, it's always for me right now. It's the uncertainty. It's always the uncertainty. It's always the uncertainty. Um, wow, that's really wow. I'm having some epiphanies just having a conversation.
That's good. That's good. Have the
For
epiphanies.
me, because it was because of my PTSD from combat and everything, it put me up on guard. It really threw me up. And I think that's why I really had it more into the neurological part of me. But energetically looking at it, it's like that was that sleeping demon inside of me. And I'm going to put it that way because it was the sleeping demon. It was that part of me that in my life, the reaction, because even as a child, the violence, the uncertainty, every day was an uncertainty. It was like being in that place. And then when you are in combat, it's uncertain. It's that PTSD. It's uncertain. What is that
Mm-hmm.
day going to bring? Is it your day to go? Are you going to get,
Blown up. Yeah.
IUD or anything, you're going to get shot at, you're going to be whatever. And then coming out of it, and then here we are into this place again, and it's like, whoa. And now seeing people that are how do I say this even more, I had some friends that passed, and it's like this almost that survivor's guilt again,
Mm-hmm.
of showing up. It's like, wow, I survived, combat, I survived this, and then going into that place again, and it's like, wow, how how do I open up, in my heart, because I love people. I will. You. They said let's go to protect people. I'm ready. I'm going.
Yeah.
You can. This body ain't the most
Well, because
physical.
yeah, because you're a light being. With the light,
All
with
right,
all light beings, that's an automatic like response. Like
let's
when
go.
a light being is embodied, which is what you are, the moment that you hear a cry for help, there's not even a thinking about it. You just like run in and help because that's what you're made of. That's the substance of your form. But the past 2 years have fed on, and we're say past 2 years have fed on old trauma that you've sustained and that has been there, and it fed off of, and then kind of it amplified all of this excess that you don't allow yourself enough time or a lot of energy to kind of sit with. And I think that as much as you love people, we all know that everybody in this world has the ability to be duplicitous, has the ability to be both positive and negative, both honest and also, they can lie through their teeth. And so everyone has that ability and that potential. And there isn't just one or another, that we all have the same substance. We're made of the same substance. We're made of the substance of God. And I think that you're so used to helping people and being there for people that to see us as a planet and to see everyone become so conflicted and to see you encounter that conflict with people that you love and have been there for, and to also see yourself struggling with your own personal journey and COVID, I think all of that has kind of just come to fruition and come to a form and has caused your your condition in a way that is forcing you to deal with it. And I think what you describe and what you're going through and what you are coming out of is the exact same thing I've had to go through myself in a different form, but it's the same energy. And it's trauma. I mean, it's all pure trauma. I mean, it's just the last year and a half have been trauma for most people.
For me, it made me feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're, even as a child, um, that uncertainty, you come from uncertain, you know, you never know what's happening as a child, you know where you're going to be, you never know what you're going to walk into, you never know what's going to happen. And then it go into, you know, I went into the military, and then it's like, oh, here we go, we're off to do combat. And it's the feeling unsafe, uncertainty, and then here we are again. You know, even, you know, coming out in my sexuality and everything, ooh, I got a lot of chest and like all pressure right there. It's like, ooh, I'm really going in there. Even in my sexuality, even being who I am, it's we deal with that on a daily basis too. It's like, oh, there's still some unsafeness or uncertainty about how to be and who to be, and yeah. And then when we got into this, to the event, to the COVID, it really set that into the PTSD. So many people have PTSD right now from that feeling unsafe, uncertainty.
Yeah.
And you can call it whatever you want, but it truly is. We went on hyperspace, and that's why you see so many people are angry, or, you know, that are having, you know, even different points of view and things like that. It's like, what?
Lashing out and
Wow. You know, but when I bring it back to myself, you know, I have to, and I'm really looking at that energy, and I've been sitting with it. It's like that dark demon, you know, that I'd say, I'm gonna call it that because that's the way it is. That's that dark energy that's been there for a very long time.
The shadow self. I think they call it the shadow self, or the shadow within us that carries all of that, you know, trauma.
Yeah, and it's the one that we don't want to turn around and look at. It's the dragon that chases us. And we're afraid so much that it's going to hurt, that it's so scary that it's going to eat us up. It's going to consume us, that part. And even me, I mean, I've been to the other side. I've been not once, but twice. And I've done, I mean, very extensive healing work with myself. I mean, I've traveled all over the place to really work with it. And now this is really down to the, like, here we are in this very, inside of me, it's like, I have no more choices. I can't, there's no more roadblocks for me now.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Well, I also think that the last vestiges of control and of certainty within you are forced to fall away now, because you did all that healing work. You built yourself into a grander version of yourself, an expanded version of yourself, a more elevated energetically version of yourself. And all of those years and all of that work that you've done after the trauma, you did all of that work. You've been working with people. You've been doing quite a bit to just reform yourself into something that serves in a way that you've been wanting for so long. So you built yourself up into this being, and there's a certainty that comes along with knowing who you are. And the world can, you know, this might be happening in this part of the world, this might be happening in that part of the world, this might be affecting this one person. But when you have, and in those singular instances, your life, your world is still to some extent solid, stable, consistent. Yeah, we have, you know, stuff that comes up, but for the most part, the world is still the world, right? But this has caused the world to turn upside down, and it has caused everybody's shadow self to reveal itself, because this has been the shadow revealer. And in doing so, it has forced all of us to either try to singularly focus on that level of stability, or work and cooperate as a collective to recreate that sense of stability and anchor ourselves to solid ideas of love and compassion and connection. And I think that's the hardest part of all of this, is that we think that if just one of us does this or one of us does that, or the military does this or the government does that, or this politician does this or this politician does that, that it's going to fix everything. And that's not the problem here. The challenge here isn't what political party or figure or individual or whoever has control. This is, do we all realize, how many of us can realize this is going to take all of us connecting on a global level in as much as we can, as much mass as we can, to bring back a connection of love and of compassion and of consideration for each other and just of love. I mean, connection and love is what we need to reform in a non-delusional way. Because many times people, and this is something I've seen with a lot of people in the spiritual community who did not have a solid root for themselves. You know, you and I, we've worked to try to get to this solid place.
Yes.
And we know reality. We know we do not live in a world where everything is perfect, but we can shape the world we live in that aligns with our nature. But when you start to, and all of us can create this bubble of reality around us, and the bubble serves us. It gives us an opportunity to expand into ourselves in a meaningful way. But a lot of people did not heal. They pretended to heal. A lot of people did not find peace in themselves, did not find resolution, did not make peace with the reality of this world. They just simply masked it with affirmation, with sayings, and with feel good. Anything that felt good, you know, love and light, everything's love and light. And what I've been telling people even before COVID was, the world does not, this is not a love and light reality. This is a dual reality. This is a reality where we have both positive and negative. We have all of the spectrum of human experience. We can't love and light everything because we will lose the reasons why we came here. We can't exist in a heavenly state here because we came into this form for a specific reason, and it is a human reason. And so when you embrace that reality, you have to deal with some things that you don't want to, and you have to face that shadow side of yourself. And you thought you had already gotten through most of it or all of it, but there was more there that you didn't even realize existed. While some of these folks didn't deal with it at all, they just masked it with the love and light bullshit. And because of that, because of this,
I'm glad you said.
Yeah, there were so many people in the spiritual community. As soon as COVID hit and all the revealer came in and began to summon within us truth, a lot of people who built their life and reality and their worldview on the love and light bullshit, the delusion of love and light, all things, started to immediately reach for anything that they knew was going to help them. You know, I'm going to reach for positive thoughts. Positive thoughts will keep us safe. If we just meditate on love, we are safe and nothing can harm us. If we just focus on positivity, then none of this stuff happening in the news or in the media or globally can affect us individually. And they immediately latched onto the delusionary state of existence that is not a part of the chemistry or the recipe here for us to have a full human experience. And so they latched onto it, and they held onto it as tightly as they could until reality came and slapped them across the face and said, no, you don't get to escape this experience. This is a collective experience that we are all going to have. You're either going to embrace that or you're going to self-destruct. And I saw a lot of people self-destruct. And I saw a lot of people, spiritually strong people, who have been like the go-to for people themselves, break and snap. And what was revealed was versions of themselves that they did not even realize was there because they ignored it or they acted as if it didn't exist. And so they refused to see it even after they refused to acknowledge it. And they, you know, in some instances went down with the ship. In other instances, they went back to the delusion after reality slapped them across the face, and they still will not accept it. There are people who did accept it and saw themselves and said, I've got to change. I've got to adapt. I've got to evolve to the summoning and the calling. Right. And that's me as well, because that has been my journey through all of this. Is like, oh shit, like this is not something that I can just stay away from. because I'm all the way in New Mexico and I'm away from people. This is not something that I'm going to escape. This is something that I'm also being affected by. And you were affected by it as well. And it forced you to have to reassess yourself. So this is all a collective trauma that we're all experiencing. And in order to heal, we have to first understand the mechanism of healing within ourselves, which is to reconnect with ourselves through love and compassion and just honoring the great divine being within all of us, and then seeing that in others as well, and making that connection and having
Ferny,
that reestablish.
and I know you're in the flow, and I want
No,
to.
go for it. Go for
My
it.
guides are wanting you because there are people out there that's looking. It's like, whoa. They're really giving me a lot. They're really pulling my chest open. It's really cool to have this experience. I have to ask this question to you, and you're probably going to get the answer. You'll get so okay. And they always use this term. Before the event happened, we were connecting in a certain way. We were plugged in over here. Now that it's kind of like in the last month or so, and you could really see it in the last month or so. For me, it's like, wait, I need to reconnect, but I'm not really sure where to reconnect, because in my own trueness I feel unsafe right now of where am I going to connect, because it's different energy.
Yeah.
And and because of my humanness, my human part of me is going, ooh. I try to put myself vulnerable, and I try to make myself vulnerable, and I see it, I feel it, and there is a place or a certain thing that I feel that is coming that's going to help with it. But what is your guidance around that? Because we can't connect to the old way.
No, we
That's
can't.
not going to happen.
Right.
And for me, I had to totally disconnect to really let what I call the dragon come up and sit down in front of me and say, here it is. Here you are. Here's the safe. I have this anxiety. There are things that's happening in my body that, it just puts me in a place that there's this uncertainty or unsure.
And
being a lighthouse and being on my, this place out there that takes the storm, that's me. I'm the storm. I take the storm. And I keep trying to be the lighthouse for others, and the storm is around me, and I'm still being the lighthouse, but I don't know where to plug my light in now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And maybe you can help even me understand a little bit, and maybe even you, what your guides are talking about. How is this new plug-in? What is that energy experience for everyone?
For me, and I feel like, and this can be answered in three ways, because there's three levels of connection is how I would describe it. There's the connection within ourselves, to ourselves and source and form. And then there's the connection to each other physically. And so all of those is, the triad there. So we've got three versions of connection. When it comes to connecting with each other physically, I mean, again, you have to find what works for you. I have had plenty of opportunities to connect with people over the last year, even with this separation, because I mean, we are in a technological age, and technology isn't here to disconnect us. It's actually given us an opportunity to reach each other in new ways that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to before. And so for me, I don't need to be with someone in person to have that connection with them. I can have that connection wherever I need to have that connection. I mean, last year I had 1,400 appointments, and that wasn't including the lives or the e-readings that I did. So I had plenty of opportunities connect with people last year during the midst of the pandemic. It was the busiest year I had, actually. And so, there's new ways of connecting. And I think technology can be seen as an enemy, because it can say, oh, well, it keeps us separate, or we don't have a place to go to, or whatever. No, because you don't need a place. Your connection is through energy. And when you have when you realize, when you are forced to no longer be able to connect physically and you have to find a new way, you evolve and adapt, and you accept what is the only option available, which is through technology. And then technology is just a stepping stone into the house of deeper connection through energy, so that you can actually connect in a deeper way than had you connected through the wire or through in-person connection or contact. So that's one way that I'll talk about connection. The second thing that I would mention is that when you pull source, when you pull love from yourself, the energy, when you pull that from a place of love and compassion within you that is based in source and in a version of us that is higher and ascended and expanded, that serves us to a certain extent. When you are dealing with the world that it's painful to love, you can no longer afford to love from the perspective of singular form. You either become ravaged by hatred and anger and rage,
Right.
or you push past that pain of loving others into a bigger love, a grander love, a version of loving that you didn't think you were capable of. And there have been days where I've woken up angry and upset and furious at the world, furious at each other, furious at what we're doing to ourselves and what we're putting ourselves through, furious at the people that I was hurt by, brokenhearted. And this is where having a broken heart comes from. I'm feeling brokenhearted at individuals and people who've been anchors in my life who are no longer really a part of my life because of events and how they've unfolded and how the revealer has shed light on things. Doesn't mean that they're wrong or I'm wrong or they're right or I'm right or they're evil or doesn't mean anything. It just means that there's been a recalibration within all of that, and that the universe said, this is not where you need to be. Calibrate and move in the opposite direction. And I was, what do you mean? I've been here so long. This is where I've been. And which is what you're having to recalibrate. And you're like, what do you mean? It's like, what do you mean? This is what I've been doing. This is how I've been operating. This is how I've been energetically channeling. What do you mean I need to recalibrate? And the universe has said, recalibrate, or you will suffer the consequences. And there was even a period during this process for me that when I tried to connect with spirit, or I was trying to connect with source, the connection wasn't as intense as I'm used to. It wasn't as smooth as I'm used to. It wasn't as clear as I'm used to. And I'm like, what the hell? And when I ask Aja about this, they're like, you need to recalibrate or this will continue to happen. And I'm just like, okay.
And what is recalibration? That's my thing. It's like, okay, guys, explain that to me. Help me understand in my humanness, because I've been operating and being in this spiritual place with myself, and you are telling me, and I got the same message, you've got to recalibrate. You have got to recalibrate. You cannot work in the same way or the same energy that you've been working with.
Right.
You have to recalibrate here. It's almost like what you were saying earlier about people are being in this way and they're making it all nice and everything, and you can take a pile of poop and put icing on it and put happy birthday in a candle. It's still a pile of poop.
Shit. It's still a pile of shit. Exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
It's still a pile of shit. And then I'm telling my guys, it's like, okay, guys, how
when everyone,
I'm having this experience.
No, you're fine.
I'm having the recalibration right now. It keeps moving. It was down here and now it's here, and it's like, okay, this is fixing to come out.
Yeah.
But and I listen to them and I say, okay, guys, how do I support this? How do I do this recalibration? How do I walk
through the valley of the shadow of death?
Yeah.
How do you walk through the valley of the shadow of death?
It's like there's this dying that's happening, and at the same time there's this grief that's happening, because I am grieving this old part of me, this part of me that no longer is Not that it's just, how do I explain that? How do
Well,
I say it's not?
this is the ascension. This
It
is
is.
what people have been asking about. We, before all of this, before the revealer showed up, we were tuned into 99 on the radio, and
That's
we
right.
thought that that's good, everything like that. And so the universe said, "Uh-oh, bitches, now it's time to shift. You know, now it's time for the ascension." And so the universe changed the frequency to, 105. And we're still operating from 99.1. And we're like, how do I tune in? How do I get in the, and this is the ascension. The ascension isn't all of a sudden lights were going to ascend from heaven and the angels were going to come down and we were going to start flying and floating and having magical that was never the ascension. That is people's imagination of what they think an ascension would look like because they place value in these things. The ascension
Correct.
is not a physical shift. The ascension is an energetic spectral shift, which means if you don't have the ability to expand into a greater sense of love, then you will operate from a 99.1% frequency and you will experience life from that state, and it will be unfathomable and it will be painful. You can ascend, but you have to shift within you. And there are two things I've done that are helping me to recalibrate. And they have not been fun, but I will tell you, there's two things that I'm doing right now. One is accepting who I am, both my light side and my shadow self, and
That's
really accepting that. And that's painful because it shows people a version of me that I've tried to control and I've not wanted to show people because I don't want them to think this or to think that or to assume some things about me. And so that's a part of me that has remained under control. And as a revealer came about, it showed its ugly head. And it was a part of me that needed to express itself. But at the same time, it helps me to accept and embrace the shadow version of myself. It doesn't help me to recalibrate, to operate only from that shadow version of myself. And a lot of people right now are in a shadow state and they're angry and they're in fear and they're in pain. So making peace with that part of myself and then just learning to love that part of myself. And so when I have an issue and I go on Instagram or whatever, and I post something where I'm like going off about something, that is the shadow part of me, and it's okay. And so if I'm going to have a dog running loose, then I'm going to create a boundary so that I give it room to do what it needs to do, but I don't pretend it doesn't exist and I don't keep it hidden and I don't allow it to run amok because I still have to have a balance with it. And so the darker part of myself is the base level of operating on the new frequency, base level.
right.
In other words, you can't even get to the frequency state of change until you start at the bottom part of yourself, which is the shadow part of ourselves. So I've allowed the shadow part of myself to exist and I'm giving it room, but I'm not allowing it to run amok. I'm just letting it be there. And that's one thing that's helping me. The other thing that is helping me is to love the most painful things that I'm experiencing and the people who are causing the most pain. And
Woo. I can tell you
that
that.
that is hard because it's easy to love and light people who you think are like you. It is not easy to love and light or to think of love and hold love on the same at the same time as this anger, this rage, this disappointment, this brokenheartedness. And so you have to choose. Do you hold on to this pain or do you embrace love? But in order to embrace love, you have to use the love and send it and use it towards those that you are broken by. And so I've had several broken hearts in the last year,
Oh
and
yeah.
people may have seen it sometimes when it shows up in me, because it's not like it's easy to hide, but it hurts. It hurts to think of people that I love, to see people who have been such an impact in my life, to think of people who, I mean, I would lay down for and die for it, and to see what has been revealed and what has been expressed and what has been shared, and to realize that there's no longer an alignment with these people, and I can no longer be aligned with these people, and they're no longer aligned with me. And is painful because you get hurt in the process. People take advantage of you. People use you. People
Yes. Oh, yes.
they forward their rage at you the moment that they feel that you're no longer in their running along. And it's been hard because there are days where I'm just like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. And so what I've been told constantly, and especially in the last 2 months or so, is that you need to send love to them, and love even the things that they have love the things that are painful to you. Love the disappointment. Love the anger in them. Love all of this, and that's a journey. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
required. Cannot loving ourselves at this point, and our level, you and I loving ourselves is the easy part because we know
That's,
when I
yes.
know I need to love. Okay, let me love myself. Oh yeah, you're funny. You're great. But we got so comfortable aligning to people on a specific frequency or on a specific vibration or a specific grouping that it's all been thrown into chaos. There is no grouping. There is no, if you try to go into a group of people right now and you go digging in, you're going to find people on every spectrum. It's not the same as it was before. The
Right.
perception of we're separate or there's good and there's bad. No, that doesn't exist anymore because God has thrown a wrench in there to confuse the hell out of you because you're either going to love everybody or you don't get to love one person and get comfortable. And so that's why you don't feel comfortable. That's why you don't feel safe because the universe is requiring of you to just love it all. And not only that, to love it all, but also go with the flow. And if you really want to go with the flow, you can't have any sense of control at all. So the things that you think you control,
I just,
the things you have, yeah, you can't control that. And
this is
that's the
how
flow.
they put this for me, Fernie, about that. Imagine yourself in a river and we've been fighting, swimming up, trying to swim up, swim up, swim up, swim up, and just fighting the current. And you have a life jacket on, but we forget that we have a life jacket and we
Yeah.
just keep swimming until we get tired and we think we're drowning. And then we turn over and we put our feet down because, oh my God, we're going that direction.
Right.
Or I can't get to the side. I'm trying to go to this side or that side. And then it's like when you decide and you remember that you're a spiritual being and that you are wrapped in love and you just have love and that you are actually not in water, that you are just riding in this river of
Mm-hmm.
love and you're just flowing through and you take your feet up and allow the love and the definition of love that they explored to me and they called it explored. They explored to me. They didn't give it to me. They allowed me to explore it. Was something that I couldn't put into words. When I was in this experience, I had no agenda. It wasn't about conditions or saying unconditional. I had no agenda, love. There was just you're you're Fernie, and if your actions are whatever it is, it is. How does that? It doesn't affect me.
Right.
I just stay in this place of I got my feet up, I'm in my river of love, and I'm just flowing down and being. That's in all areas of our life.
Yeah.
That's everything. Your spiritual life, everything. And we've been domesticated like that because if you say, "Oh my God, I'm gay," or "I'm straight," or now we have so many definitions of what that is. It's like, wait a minute, you're gay or straight, and that's it.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
okay, you're it's it's okay, but just be you, just be who you are. Um, you know, we're in this, and we're on this planet together. There is nobody that will escape this
Right.
experience that we're going through. And spirit, we've done this before. We've been right here in
Yeah.
this moment before.
Yeah.
And one of the funny things with me when I was having this experience the other day and I was like really going through this, oh shit, what if this is what it is and we're gonna have this and I'm gonna I thought to myself, I'm not afraid of dying because dying is very beautiful. I've been there.
Yeah.
That's not an issue.
Right.
And I thought to myself, Ferny, I think I'm afraid of living. I think I'm afraid of living. And I think that's what has happened. It's like, wow, I forgot that to live. And
Well,
that's the part about being unsafe in
I
there.
think I also looping back to that in your analogy of like going down the river, because people in our line of work and what we've done and how we've worked for years, we're used to going down the river. So for us, going down the river or going with the flow of the river is not the issue. At this
What?
point, you and I both fed into the idea that going down the river is going to be smooth because the universe is going to give us a smooth sailing experience.
Yeah.
And what now has happened is the universe says, first, stop swimming upstream and surrender, which is what you and I had already done. Now that we've surrendered and we're going downstream, we've had experiences that have been very beneficial, very fruitful and blessings in our lives because of this. But now the stream and everybody else's stream, now we've gone through a
Is in the
period.
rapids.
Right, exactly. Now we have rapids. And we don't have the luxury of getting out of the river unless we want to go and kill ourselves. We don't have the luxury of getting out of the river. We just have to, oh shit, this is coming up. And we don't have the luxury of being, even if we're like wearing, we're in a boat or something, doesn't matter. We don't have the luxury of that. Some of us have to experience this fully and in the most raw state as possible. And this is tearing some of us up extremely. Some of us are just getting, beat down, but all of us are going through a similar experience. And so not only that, there's a boulder that comes up and we're slammed up against a boulder. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? I did exactly what I was supposed to. Yeah. Yeah. And we get stuck there and we're like, what is this? What is this? And what we don't realize is that, the universe has set it up that there are people standing on the edge of the ocean, on the edge of the river, watching us go through this. And this is their opportunity to jump in and try to help us and save us, or stand back and watch us get torn up. And so this is an opportunity for the universe where it's allowing us to go through such a collective experience that some of us are being offered the opportunity to express and show and reveal compassion within us, which some of us may not have had that compassion. People who were just in their own world are now forced to show compassion, or to continue to see us all go through this. And so people in unique experiences, not only that, we're also, once we get past this boulder, there's a cliff and a ravine that we're coming up to. And this is where we aren't allowed to see what's next at this point, because this is the moment of faith. It's the moment of faith.
I think that, I know you've probably been feeling it too. It's right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's there and I can't see past it. And that makes me nervous. And I'm like, okay, guys.
Well, this is the ultimate test of faith. This is walking through the fire. And people would say, I'm gonna walk through the fire. But once you get past the fire, there's a hole that's dark and you don't know what's in it, and you're gonna have to jump in. And this is the moment of faith for us. We either have to have faith that there is a higher power at work that is manipulating and controlling and directing things, and we're just a puppet in that whole scenario, and we don't actually control the things that we control. And if we fight it, it just makes it harder for us and makes it more painful. Or do we just allow ourselves to just surrender to the process, even if it means the possibility of more pain in what we just went through with the boulders and the whole rapids? And so we're at that point, and this is the ultimate moment of faith. And death is not preferable for me. And I know that, and this is where you have to assess yourself individually, and everybody needs to do this. Mm-hmm. Do I accept the task at hand, knowing that I'm not allowed to see what's on the other side of it, and just allow myself to be used? Or do I fight it and try to avoid this from happening, or jump off? And some people are fighting it, and in the process of fighting it, they're being taken out of the game because they're not going with it. And so they're being taken out of the game. Other people are jumping out of the game and they're not sticking around. Some of us are going forward in this moment of faith, and it's scary, but at the same time, I have to dig and reach for that part of me that exists within the substance of love and hope that I will know what to do on the next stage or in the next level. And so the uncertainty is part of the process of accepting and surrender. And we've only been able to surrender when we knew we had some sort of control. You don't have any control anymore, Shannon. The control has been taken from you. You must surrender to the process, even if the process reveals some painful things or has you going through some difficult and challenging experiences. But this is what's required of you to expand into the next frequency, and then practicing and holding on to the experience and the compassion and the love within you that you can still express, that has not been taken away. It's only been hidden behind that anger and pain and struggle that you thought you got rid of.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's like I really went in a depressed state, you know, right before having to go to the oncologist and stuff. And I said, wait a minute, what's going on here, guys?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. And they literally asked, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I said, I want to stay. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know how that part of surrendering is. I don't, you know, I mean, we have one concept of what surrender looks like,
Yeah.
but when you're in a spiritual surrender,
Mm-hmm.
and even the word faith is like, that's not even part of it, it's just the state of knowing. I have to know that when I get to that edge of that cliff, I'm going to stand upright and I'm going to just walk across to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to choose to go down in the water.
Yeah.
I have enough that I understand that I can just walk through, because it is probably the illusion that I created because the portal's open and when I walk through. And I would understand what that is, because I have to go. And I know inside of me, Ferny, I have to go over there and step on the dog poop and feel it, get it between my toes and feel everything, so that I can come back and say, Ferny, you know, when I walked over there, there was this dog poop and it had some crunchy stuff in it, and you're going to feel it, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. And I think that's part of my job in some ways, but in some way, I don't have to do it by myself anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, even when we're getting beat up against the rock, there are people there that can come and support us.
Yeah.
If they choose, they can get in the water and we can build this whole experience of working together.
Yeah.
To float, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, here we are at this thing and we can all just walk across. It was the illusion.
Well, remember the sacrifice of a master. The sacrifice of the master starts with God, where God surrendered itself as one into infinite combinations of life and creation, still being one, but also being all things because of that sacrifice. And so we've seen that happen with masters in the past, Jesus being one of them. He sacrificed himself for his cause and his own teaching and his own perspective of life for others, so that they may see and take that. And, you know, he surrendered. And so sometimes the sacrifice of the master doesn't always produce a happy ending or a bridge across the water. Sometimes it produces experience that is painful but necessary. Yeah. And I, at this point, I'm building my faith and trying to love past the heartbreak and pushing myself to be more than what I thought I was capable of, and to love as much as God loves, and love as much as I can. And if I'm sacrificing part of that, then I have faith to be used. And that's the part of it it's the loss of control. Like, don't control anything. And you just have to, you were talking about having that visual that you can just walk across. drop that, let that go.
Mm.
Because if what you need to experience is the fall, you may not hit rocks at the bottom. You may hit something soft, or you may just fly and not realize you had the ability to fly. So there's no need to
That's right.
walk. And so, but just give into the opportunity to see what comes next. Um, Sometimes when we surrender to that, something happens beyond what we thought was possible. And I don't know if that will be the case for me or for any of us, but I'm
That's right.
just going with it. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm like, okay, allow myself to be used, so use me. And I think that drop that bridge walk, because it's going to give you another boundary. Now, granted, and this is for everybody who's watching, boundary, allowing yourself, loving the parts that are painful doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't have boundaries with people, or you shouldn't set boundaries with individuals in your life that you need to have a boundary for. It's not what I'm talking about. You know, there are people that I've, over the last year, I'm like, oh, I need to put a boundary up with this person, or oh, this is no longer an aligned in energy for me or connection for me. I need to release this person. And so that doesn't mean you shouldn't do those things. But when it comes to life itself and the entirety of life, I mean, if you choose life, you have to embrace um, the the uncertainty, because the uncertainty brings about opportunity, and that's the faith. Is the uncertainty will bring about the opportunity, or an opportunity, and I just want to experience the most I can in the expression of God, and that is something I can't describe or even
That's right.
try to explain to people, because it's something that individually everyone is going to face in their own way, shape, or form.
Spirit is wanting me to say this too. I don't know if you've ever read The Masters of the Far East. There's a part in there where the guy is talking. He's in a monastery, and there, every meal he goes to, they serve him these hot peppers. I mean, they're just hot, hot peppers, and that's the food is so hot and so hot. And he's telling them, "It's just so hot. I can't. I just can't eat anymore. I can't. Just can't. I just can't." And the monk told him, he says, when you start loving it and stop seeing it as being a disadvantage or something of that way, you will experience something different.
Mm.
And so every day when he came in there, he sat down and he started saying that he loved the fire, he loved the heat, he loved the fire, he loved the food, he just loved it, even though he was just had tears coming and tears coming. When he finally, one day he went and sat down and started eating and ate everything, and he didn't have it, and he's like, he realized it, he's like, whoa. And he talked to the master, and the master said it's because when we change our perception of what love and hate is, or what hate is, or to when we resist something, when we're fighting or we're resisting it, we're not loving it.
Yeah.
And when we're not loving it and seeing it just as what it's for, then we have that experience of the fire, the heat. And so when in our life, even looking at, because this is one of the things that about the recalibration is, wait a minute, I have to start looking at my life, and instead of looking at people, and like my mom has gave me a lot of heart
Break.
aches in my
Yeah.
life, a lot. And now she's at the end of her life, and she's very fragile. Getting to love her and take care of her and get I guess, how do I say, some people say, how can you do
Yeah.
that when she did this to you? And it's my compassion for her. It's understanding where she came from and understanding that place, and then understanding and loving her. And then going inside of me and sitting with that little boy, that part of me, and loving him and saying, you know what? Here was the experience. Here was the heartache. You know, it's like I wanted to call a friend of mine the other day and say, hey, I need a mom talk. You know, it was the most weirdest thing. It's like,
Right.
I need somebody that it represents a mom to me to give me a mom talk, which I found was fascinating. But it was that little boy inside of me showing up and going, wow. It's okay to come forward. It's okay to be here now. It's okay to allow somebody to love me. I don't think I've ever had that in life. You know, as somebody to really show up. I've just been that one that's been on the rock being beat the hell out of.
Yeah.
For a long time. And I'm the one, again, I'm going to cry because it's like, wow, I just have this whole emotional thing that showed up. I can see the helplessness in her. But as I see it in her, I see that little boy in me that was helpless.
Yeah.
That, couldn't defend, couldn't be, in that place. And bringing him forward and surrendering in that is like turning around. It's like, man, it's like, man, that's going to really fucking hurt if I really tap into that and feel that little boy or feel that pain. And really, that was a story I told myself. It really was. Because when I turned around and sit, Ferny, I felt relief. There was a relief that happened. I'm having all kind of things happen. My whole body is going wild right now. Because it's that place in our life. It's like, man, that shadow or that part of us, that deep rooted, you're not going to get away from it. And it is going to be rough rapids. It's going to be there. And I can't tell you it's going to be okay.
Right.
I can't even tell myself that. I can't even guarantee myself that. But in this experience, in this life, in this moment, like what I experience, and I have to bring myself, what do I feel in this moment? That's what I've been working with myself. What do I feel in this moment? And then be in that place, because right now there's a lot of emotions. Like if I was to say, it's like, wow, I feel a little bit of resistance with myself. It's like, woo, we're still, even though I know it's okay, I'm okay, I'm feeling okay. But there's this resistance of like, wow, okay, I'm telling my story out to all these people and they're going to judge me, or they're going to judge my experience. And it's like, wait a minute, no, no. Because my story of where I came from and what occurred and where the surrender part of it, for me, it's just loving them. Loving my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my brothers, my sister, everybody. People that I thought that loved me and just used me and flipped me up and down. And then you're just standing there like, what just happened?
Yeah.
what just happened? I thought we were good, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you
Yeah.
know, and then it's like all of it just sitting there, and you're just still, okay, I've got to, I surrender. I surrender into the flow. And like you said, it's like doing the shaman's death. That's what they call it. Every day you're dying and you're being renewed, and you're this part of you is going. But I think right now, for me, if I really wanted to say what I'm feeling the grief. I'm feeling the grief of that old part of me, but I'm like I can't bury it. You know,
Right.
at the same time, it's like I can't let it go. I can't let this because that was my identity. Ooh,
Right.
that's a big one.
Right.
Ooh,
That
that
was.
gave me a chill. That's my identity. That's who I was. All of that
That's
nasty.
99.1 though. That's part of the 99.1, and you're not at
Oh
99.1 anymore.
no, that's that place of wow. The identity is like okay, and that's hard because all those people that done all that, that was my identity.
Yeah.
Ooh, I got it all going.
Well, it's a shock. I think it, when this happens,
I'm curious how this heart monitor is going to do
well,
because
well, they're probably going to tell you, you're like, what the hell is going on with your heart? It's a shock to the self, because when you thought you had yourself pegged and you thought you knew yourself, and then all of a sudden a new version of yourself reveals itself, and you're like, what the hell is this? And so your old identity is no longer, it's no longer enough to encompass the vibration and the frequency of this new version of you and the new ascended
yeah,
point of reference, the new ascended perspective and space. And so you're like, oh shit, like, okay. And so I know you're saying, how do I connect? And you were talking about that earlier. How do I connect? How do I connect? Which you're doing that. You're connecting in the moment. You're connecting. It's just, it
right.
doesn't feel the same because it isn't the same. And we're used to it feeling
No,
a certain way, but it's different. And here's an example of this from my perspective. When I do channeling work and mediumship work and spirit work, when I communicate with them, it feels a certain way. And the
yes,
intention, the energy, the emotion, it all feels a certain way. And as this all has started to happen, the way it felt before is no longer there. And it throws me off because I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because I'm still doing it and people are validating their experience with me, but it also doesn't feel the same as what it did
right.
like a year ago or 6 months ago. And I'm like, what the hell? And so the recalibration part is I'm still going to do it even if it doesn't feel the same and I don't feel the same vibrations and the same form of energy. I'm still going to do it. And I figure it out as I go along, because I had to figure it out the first time. I got to figure it out the second time. And so I've had to force myself and push myself through that boundary, because I got used to hearing and getting it from a specific level of vibration. And so there was there were certain sensitivities that I was used to. And so now that I'm on this different frequency, I'm like, okay, I'm having to just reacclimate and get comfortable with this new sense of, well, this is where it's at now, and just make peace with that. And so for you, it's it's like you're having to basically reinvent yourself, even though you didn't ask to reinvent yourself, and you weren't even
That's right.
trying to reinvent yourself, but you're like, okay, I got to reinvent myself. I just don't know where to start or what I should start with. And I would say start with your shadow self and accept it. And the core and one of the roots of your shadow self is your mother, and the physical experience you're having with her is part of that coming to peace within yourself, because in her fragile state you have opportunity to hurt her and to return to her the
Oh
gifts
yeah,
of anger and the gifts of rage and the gifts of pain that she gave to you. And instead you are choosing to see her through the eyes of God and the perspective of love. And that is not something you could do before, and now you're doing it. And you honor yourself with this opportunity. You honor yourself through this process. You honor yourself through loving beyond the shadow of pain that you've held within yourself. You honor yourself. And now is the time of reflection. Now is the time for assessment, for viewing yourself in a new light and in a new form that can serve many beyond what you have done before. And you must accept this process. It has been granted, it has been given, it has been gifted because you asked us for it. And so you must proceed, and you must have faith in that you are being guided and you are being summoned through the experience you are living. You are being absorbed into the presence and the service of love, that of God which you exist, that of God which you serve, that of God which you represent here. And so they are granting us opportunities if we just accept it and try not to pretend like we are the know-it-alls that we've been used to being, and just, okay, let's just back to kindergarten again, and that's where we're at.
It goes, and then for me too, it's like, where is my knight in shining armor to come and rescue me? Where is he at? You know, it's like I'm doing this, and it's like, oh shit. No, I'm my own. I'm here. I have to remember. I have a life jacket on. I'm okay.
Well, let go of the
And
knight in shining armor for one, and start thinking of a peddler who's on the street as an opportunity to experience this, because I think that the perspective and the ideology behind that has, in a way, inhibited your ability, because
right,
we've been taught that the knight in shining armor on a horse looks a certain way and operates a certain way and is a certain way. And maybe it's not, and maybe you're being reformulated so that you can allow a connection with the experience you desire, because the experience you desire is not a knight in shining armor. The experience you desire is simply the experience of love. And the first step in embracing and letting someone in with love that is frightening is what you're going through with your mother. She is the key to unlock the ability to love and have that show up in your life in that form, because the closest people to us have also been the closest to hurt us. And so typically we don't allow people into our inner circle because we have gone through so much suffering. And so we serve people and we're there for people and we give to others, always with an air of ego and control, and almost an arrogance in how we've been. And your experience with your mother is teaching you how to love something so close to you that can also cause you as much pain. Because in every rich experience of love that we have, whether it be romantic or family or friendship, we will experience both love and pain. And some of those experiences are valid and worthy to continue, and some of them aren't. And so unlocking that mechanism within you is about loving your mother through this period, and then revealing that part of you that will allow someone close who has the ability to hurt you to also cause you to feel that pain and to love them back and love them even despite that. You know, my partner and I love Ed, and Ed loves me, and we've hurt each other. We've been mean to each other at times. We've been cruel to each other, but love is the dominating force in our relationship. And when you have a dominating force of love, it can work. When you have a dominating force of fear, anger, rage, pain, suffering, resentment, regret, it can't work. And the examples in your life closest to you, like your mother, have conditioned you to be a certain person in this world. And now you're releasing that conditioning and making room for a new conditioning, a new part of yourself that you haven't been able to access yet.
That's true. That's yeah. How do we deal with that?
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna cry, and I can feel it in you. I can feel it. Even you, because of your, you know, it's, you get to see your whole life and how you work with it, and the craziness in our own childhood or our own life, and how it's like, what is our representation of love, and how because for me, I don't really felt as a child I was showed love. And the one person that did show me love died,
Which is
left.
an experience of, it's a form of rejection, because if they died, then they didn't love me enough to still live, and they rejected me by dying. And it's a form of rejection. It's a form of loss that creates a sense of rejection. My sister is an example of that, because she, her father loved her as a child, and then when my mother and her father separated and divorced, he just didn't participate in her life. He showed up one time, and that was it, and then he never came back. And so right there's the experience of rejection. And he didn't love me enough to even try, or be uncomfortable enough to be around these people just so that I could have my father. So there was a rejection there. And then after that, my uncle who raised her, short few years after that, died of cancer. And that was
Right.
another opportunity and experience of rejection, because he didn't worry enough to beat cancer for her so that he could be with her, even though that's not what happened, but that's what was experienced from her persona, from her life, from a human perspective. And then a few years later, I pop into the picture. She comes to live with us, and I turn into this stabilizing force in her life. And she can blossom because I acted as this anchor for her. And then years pass, and she starts to evolve and become a new person, and recovers herself in the ashes of her past. And then I struggle at that point in my life, and I just needed to get away. And I pursued and I followed my ex to another state. And again, leaving her and my mother behind. I mean, she was, at that point, she was an adult. She could take care of herself. And she offered to take on some of the responsibilities for my mother that I was responsible for. But it was still a rejection. It was, I didn't love her enough to choose her over a loving opportunity for love with my ex in another state.
Right.
And so again, it's a repeating pattern. And so for you, your mother, and you being treated cruelly, and you suffering all of these cruelties, and then the only person that you love dying on you, becoming a form of rejection from a human perspective, even though that's not what happened and what you were experiencing at the time. It's what you felt.
As a little boy, it was.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of that it's been really interesting in my life. Through this experience this last year and all the way up to here, it's like people that have came into my life that I have loved. There's a story. They hurt me. They die. They leave me. They go to prison. They go away from me. And it brings into that place of, why don't people love me? Why don't people love me? I love them, but why don't people love me?
Yeah.
And so, and well, we're getting to the really deep rooted stuff
Mm-hmm.
now.
This is the revealer. And when we talked about it, I said, Shannon, if we're going to do
I
this,
wanted to
you
make a
have to
joke.
expose yourself and every aspect of yourself, and be vulnerable, because this is where it's at. And so you
Right.
have to expose yourself, but it only shows
But
more of your light, in my opinion.
right, to come out.
Yeah.
He's my defender. When I wanted to make a joke, out of it and make laugh and everything, and I'm like, no, no, no. This is really this was my agreement with you when we set this up, Shannon. We're gonna do this, but we're gonna put it on the table. We're gonna put this on the table. Because for me, in my own space of feeling not enough, feeling that place of, it's okay for me to love you, but if I let somebody inside here, who my heart is just really hurting. If I let somebody love me and let them in, they're going to die or leave me. They're going to go away from me. Something's going to happen to them. And I don't want to go through that pain. I sit through that, and it's like, wait a minute. I've been sitting with this the last few days, really big time around that. It's like, wait, but I have to let somebody in. I have to let somebody in
Mm-hmm.
because I really do. I really want somebody in my life. I really want to. I want somebody to love me, but I got to love myself, and I got to be able to love them, and be able to open myself up, like you said. If I go into a relationship that's I'm not truly have that foundation of love, really love, like you said, if there's not that place of love, when we do go into, like you were talking about, you and your husband, you get in the rapids, one of us is going out instead of both of us holding on and going through together to go through the other side of the rapids, knowing that no matter what, it's our love. I mean, we can do whatever we want to, but we're still going to love each other in the end.
There are no happy endings. There's only, I can have a damn good time. So you're going to have that pain again. You're going to feel it again. And it has to be something you accept as part of the process. And I think and this is why I say your mother and what you're going through right now with her is the key to this, because it is forcing you to love someone that you have struggled to love. And it is forcing you not only that, but to also experience a version of her you never saw before. And she's going to leave. And that's going to be painful. Even if you had a difficult experience with her, it's going to hurt when she's not there and she's gone. And so every person that you engage with, every person that you allow in is going to hurt you. And we can walk around in this world and tell ourselves, oh, I'll have a happy ending. It's gonna be like Disney movies, or it's gonna be like, like happily ever after. And I'm just like, what reality are you living in? Because I speak to people every day, and I speak with people only about their non-happy endings, where, my husband and I, we worked our whole lives and we did the right things and made the right choices. And we started building our dream house. And the day it was completed and we moved in, he had a heart attack and died. We can't even experience that with each other anymore. Or my husband and I were trying so hard to have a baby, and we had been trying for years to have a baby, and I got pregnant. And while I was pregnant, he died. Or my wife and I were trying to be together, and we had gone back and forth, and in this back and forth relationship that was just toxic because we just weren't evolved enough or mature enough to be with each other. And we split up, and then we got back together. And we got back together, it was like we were like exploring each other from a completely different perspective. And we actually were doing really well. And this was a different version of our relationship we had never experienced before, because we were adults at this point, and she died. So all of these non-happy endings, because life is full of life and not happy endings. And so if you want someone in your life, are you willing to accept that experience if it only lasts a year or 2 years? Are you willing to accept that experience if they suddenly have a stroke and you have to take care of them? Are you willing to accept the potential realities of this world as part of this experience of love in this reality? So that's, I think, where your mom is the key to this, because she's a kind of a collection of all of that stuff, and you're confronted with that and you're dealing with it. And this is the key to unlocking that next step for you, which is to open up your heart, and to, your heart has thick walls because it hurts too much to feel things so closely in an intimate way where you're really letting somebody in. So it's thick walls that have now formed around your heart and are reflecting this. I love you all. I'm here to serve everybody. I'm here, but stay right there. Stay right there. Right there.
Yes.
Sit right there. 6 feet.
Oh no,
6 feet.
6
You haven't been doing
social distancing.
You've been doing life social distancing from the heart perspective. You've been socially distancing from your heart a lot of years in your life now because of what you've gone through.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Yes. It's yeah. it's easy to love you or to be loved from a distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And allow
I,
myself that space, because it's like, oh, if I let them in, they're just going to take my energy. They're going to take, they're going to try to take, it's like, I don't know. I don't think that might be truth, but for some part of me, it's like, maybe I want to have that experience. I want to
yeah.
have that, like you're saying, it's like, there's no person that is perfect. There's no one. Everybody comes with things, and there's going to be things that happen. And allowing myself to be in that space. But I know with my shadow self, that dragon that I have to set and just sit, it's in front of me now. It's really in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
It,
And it's
it is,
beautiful.
it
And it's
is
a beautiful
not
part of you. Yeah.
nothing that I think it's, being out and raw. It's being raw and just being, and even talking. It's like I told Marco
Marco.
the other day. I said, Marco, I'm just depressed. I am depressed. And after just like recognizing it, it was like, oof, I just opened up.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I wasn't being raw. I wasn't being truthful. I was hiding it. I was being in that place. And once I realized it, it's like, wait a minute, no. Yes, I am, but it's time for me to change and shift that energy, to move that, or I call it transcend it. I don't transform anything, because that's why I go back to the birthday cake. I transcend it. I move it to the next level, to where there's a mastery in it. Whatever it looks like, it's a mastery. Because that's what we're here to do, is the master, to understand how to transcend the energies, how to move the energies, how to work through energies. And that, we can be in the love energy, but there's logs and shit and all kind of stuff floating down the thing with us that we get beat up on.
Well, and I think we've existed in a world where you're not allowed to be depressed. You're not allowed to feel bad. You're not allowed to be human. You're not allowed to experience these versions of yourself. If you're feeling depressed or you're experiencing depression, something's wrong with you. It needs to be fixed. If you're feeling this way, something, and we've in a world like that. And for myself, and I tell my partner this, sometimes I go through these periods where I do feel a feeling of depression that comes on. And I even tell my partner, I'm just a moody person. Get used to it. It is what it is. Like, I'm not even trying to, you don't need to be the focal point for me or the target for me. Just let me sit with this. And because I learned, and I actually, interestingly enough, I learned this from watching the Lady Gaga documentary. And she was talking about her process. And for her process of coming up with new music or to reinvigorate herself is sometimes she goes into this version of herself that is in trauma, and she kind of surrenders to this depression within her, and she sits with it. But she says some of the greatest music she's had has come from those places. And I'm like, well, isn't that an interesting thing? And so for myself, when I do feel something like depression come up, or something like a sense of pain or a sense of anguish come up, I don't immediately respond, I need to get rid of this and push it away. I've been embracing it, and I accept it. I'm like, okay, wait, what are you? What do you want to show me? What are you trying to reveal to me? What are you trying to get me to understand? And there are things about other people or about situations in my life or with others that, or in the world, that the moment that I allow myself and give myself permission to dip into that lower version of myself, that very low human, just very deeper aspect of beingness, I understand something. I find something. Yeah. I find something and I understand something, or I perceive something in a different way. And then once I perceive it, I'm like, that's what it is. And then I bring myself back up. And I'm like, okay, now I got, it's almost like diving. It's like you have to go diving. Okay, I'm diving in. And it's like, you need oxygen. You need oxygen. If you don't get the oxygen, you're going to die here. You're going to die here. I'm like, yeah, but There's something in this state, in this moment, I need to understand. So embrace it and just sit with it. And it's okay. You're not going to be destroyed. Just sit with it for a moment. Feel this, understand these variations of energy and emotion. What is this? What is this? And I think that's actually helped me tremendously with like the mediumship work that I do, because, you know, when and not to toot my own horn, but I've sometimes seen a bunch of mediums out there who everything is love and light. And whenever they speak on behalf of a spirit, they make up a completely new personality that person wasn't. And I don't want that. I don't want the heavenly version of that person. I want the person that people knew, all warts and all. And so in order for myself to even be able to calibrate and line up with that energy, I have to allow myself the lower vibratory state of human experience, emotion, and mindset, which also brings about energy on that level. And so when I dip down into that lower level, it is uncomfortable. I don't like the feeling or the experience or the emotions in that level, but it's intentional. And so I allow that, you know, and 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was doing a mediumship session for a client. And I always tell people, if someone comes through that you really don't want to talk to, it's okay. I trust there's a higher power at work, but I'm gonna surrender to that person and let them speak for a moment, even if just for a moment. There's something they have to share. And so you may not want to talk to that person. I'm going to let them in, and then I will bump them back out, because I want them to have that opportunity, and I trust the source. And so in her session, you know, this individual came forward, who was a male, who was the uncle to her, and he was expressing and sharing all of these details about these horrendous things he did. And he said, my brain was broken, and I didn't have the ability or the capacity to connect or to love. And he said, I was trying to figure this out and understand this, and all I could do was just respond in anger or in domination. And so he hurt a lot of people, and he had actually raped her mother. But he through me, he said that he was so very sorry for what he had done and been in this world, and that he now understands who he was and what happened and why this version of him existed. And now he was working to bring relief to all of the souls that he caused so much pain for, because he now realized it. And he needed to start with her and to tell her that he was sorry, and that he is finding ways to make amends, even if people don't understand this. But he's going to work with this on all levels. And so after the session, she validated a lot, and she says, you know, he was a serial killer. He took a lot of people's lives, and there were even stories about him, or documentaries about him. I had no idea. That's who I was bringing through. And on some level, I'm like, oh, like, I only want to deal with higher frequencies or higher vibrations or healing. But I know that sometimes you have to allow yourself to dip into a darkness to reveal a healing. And through that, she began to gain some sort of closure from that whole experience and what her mother had to go through and all of these other things. And it's just, I'm like, to me, I was even uncomfortable, because I was just like, get away from me, mister. You know, you're an asshole. But at the same time, I surrendered to it, and something came through that I didn't anticipate, nor was I even thinking, but it did something good for the first time, maybe in the entire experience of that being on this planet. I gave them a voice for the very first time in a way that it was fully acceptable and fully able to. And so I was like, okay, so there it is. And so I think dipping down and allowing ourselves to experience those versions of ourselves it's okay. And we sometimes need to. We just don't need to make it a habit or perceive that lower, darker shadow version of ourselves as the true form, because it isn't. It is an aspect of us, not the us. And so, which is a part of the healing.
That is true. Even like for me, like I said, when I was down in it, I needed to experience it. I needed to have that experience with feeling depressed. And that's when I start asking the same thing. I start setting with it. I just say, okay, we're here. This is what I'm experiencing. This is where I'm at. What is it that I'm needing to understand? What are you telling me? What am I not expressing? You know, what is happening? And then it's like for me to come out of that, you know, I have to walk out of the darkness. I have to know that it's to find that balance again, because I am Libra. You know, it's like we have to be this balance of, and with a Cancer moon, so it's all about emotion, this trauma. But being in that energy, even doing my work, even being what you said, is like when I'm working with somebody, I feel them, I experience them, I will go down with them into that dark space to work with it, but I understand it. I come back out. Even working with myself, you know, even being a healer or a lighthouse person, or whatever you want to call yourself, we still have to look at ourselves. We still have to look through, and you know, I see people, oh, I've had this great life, this great childhood, but sometimes people overlove people.
Yeah. Yeah. People who are like that. I've had an incredible life. Everything's been great. Everything's been wonderful. Slap, slap. Okay, whatever. Like, I'm able to talk to people like that just because I'm like, well, then you can't understand where I'm coming from in many instances. But yeah.
Right. But you say
Yeah.
that you have a great life, wanting a healing.
Right. Right.
Me wanting me to talk to a loved one, and it's like, wait, no. When I look at myself, and I'm even looking at it now for this, because I get to work with I'm working in my own self, recalibrating my own self. It's like being a Libra, balancing myself and understanding I balance through emotions.
Yeah.
I do. I balance in that space. And I'm not a person that, like, anger is something that I will resist a lot. I don't, you see me get angry, it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
We're fixing to get down. But in my own self, I think that's part of it too, is just allowing myself to just be in that and process it. And I wouldn't even say process. I mean,
Integrate.
I'm looking at a different word. Integrated.
Yeah. Integrated.
Just
It's
love it.
it's assimilate the
Yeah.
opportunity. Yeah. All of the knowledge and information that is being
Because
understood.
Ferny, this is part of what I'm really understanding in my own self is, wait, that is my power. Everything that was all the hurts and pains and struggles and everything, my brokenness, that's actually my power.
Yeah.
That's got me to this moment. I couldn't be Shannon in this moment without those experiences. And it is my power. It is my place where I look at it and say, wow, you know, I understand what it feels like to be abused physically, sexually, emotionally,
mentally.
all of it, every part of it. I truly do. And when I work with somebody, it's like there's an understanding in that space. I can go there and say, wow, I can go down into that energy with them and bring them up. You know, I can go there because I know what that energy is. It's like, like I said, I'm that person that goes and finds the dog poop out in the yard and come back and tell you. But in our own, I want to say in our own wisdom, this energy that we're moving into, that wisdom has expanded and says, wait a minute, we've been utilizing this as your power, and now we're going to shift it. We're going to recalibrate that, but you're still going to have your power. You're still going to be you,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to be you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're still going to be you, but you're going to be recalibrated. And it is that place. I say, wow, I'm not afraid of dying, but I guess I am afraid of that spiritual death, if you want to say, or identity death.
It's an identity death. Well, it's actually more of a identity expansion, because your
Sometimes
identity has been based in limitations or in conditioned perspectives. And so this is just an expansion of identity, is how I would call it.
yes. But one of the things I do sometimes, Fernie, when I have like English words and I don't know how, I'll say, Fernie, how would you say that in Spanish? What would be the word in Spanish? I'll ask Marco, give me a word in Spanish, or give me a word that would be in that place, and he'll give me it. And then we start talking about that word, and there is a whole expansion, because in our human words, English words sometimes are very limited, I guess vibrationally, because for me, I experience so much in energy. I experience a lot in energy. Is not words for me.
Yeah.
I have I guess so many levels that I'm working at or being
Multispectral.
with. Yeah.
Multispectral. It's a multispectral, because whenever I've sat with you or been with you, it's like there's different versions of you that are kind of like operating simultaneously. And so different feeling or experiencing versions of you are picking up on all these different aspects. And so you're just like processing, 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 processing. And so you're used to that, and now you're like, okay, but now we're
Wait,
gonna we're
now we're
gonna
going to bring them all into one bag.
yeah, now we're gonna blindfold every version of you that's doing that, so that you can
Yes.
learn how to do it in another way. And you're like, oh shit, my life is built on this process. I ain't gonna be able to like change this, and which is what's
Yeah.
happening. But yeah,
And that's why I go back to the, for me, it's like, and I know I have to understand it for myself. How do we plug in? How do we connect? How I need to change that how do we to how do I? How do um, I don't want to say reconnect, but
the idea or perception of no connection reveals an opportunity of faith of connection when you aren't experiencing it in the way you're used to. In other
right,
words, when you don't feel you're connected, then okay, then accept that as being a connection that you just haven't gotten used to or familiar with. There's never been a there's never been a loss of connection. There's just been a familiarity of the connection. And
right,
so this is not even about reconnecting or to resume a connection or to recalibrate where you can feel something again. Just assume the connection is still there, and just, okay, I don't feel it the way I'm used to, but I'm going to trust that it's there. And
right,
that's the faith that kicks in. And it's the faith. And then if you do that and then you practice the compassion and love, you'll start to have the affirmations, and the universe will start to reaffirm through all of the synchronicities and the alignment again. And then you'll see that new version of the connection. Like, I'm back. It's back to where I'm used to. And which is what is happening now with me, which is I was going through this weird period and I was like, I don't feel it the same way. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust that it's still there. I'm going to push through my doubt and my self-consciousness, and just
right.
push through and act as if it's still there, and just continue to operate as if it's still there, and have faith that it will, I'll become familiar with this new connection that I just obviously am not feeling the way I'm used to. And then sure enough, within not very even long, just a matter of weeks, all of a sudden the affirmations and the synchronicities and the alignments show up again, you know?
Right.
And I was like, okay, you know, and it's like, here's an example of this. And I shared this with everybody because I was feeling so brokenhearted that I was having trouble connecting with God and nausea. And that's not been something that I've had to deal with in any time recently. And I mean, when I go and I connect, it's there. And so with all of the brokenheartedness, I'm like, you know, I'm trying to click. And so I was like, okay. And so I was on my walk once and I spoke to God and I said, okay, God, I'm going to need a little bit of a booster from you because I need a God booster.
Okay,
Yeah.
God, I need a booster
here. That's what I said. God, I need a booster from you now because, you know, I'm a little bit, I'm struggling with this and I'm not sure how I need to move forward. So I said, I need you to just do something for me. I need you to show me a physical manifestation of yourself. And I don't care in what form it comes in. I don't care if it's the baby Jesus. I don't care if it's you in immediate and direct form. I don't care if it's the Virgin Mary. I don't care. However form you need to show up to me, show up to me. And I want to see it in a physical form because I've never required that. I've always operated from faith with all that I do, because it's always in my head unless it shows up in an alignment. I don't just want an alignment, God. I want a physical manifestation of you. And so show up in whatever form you have to. Show me an angel, show me the Virgin Mary, show me Jesus, show me energy. I don't care. Whatever it's got to take. But I don't want to have a question that this is you. And I also want it to happen so that Ed, my partner, sees it as well. Because if it's just me having the experience, I'm going to wonder if I'm becoming a schizophrenic like my mother, if I'm going crazy. So I need it so that even my partner sees it or witnesses it and even thinks it's weird or it's out of this world. Within a few days is when my coin showed up in the mail. Do you remember those posts about my coin?
Right.
Yeah, a golden coin that I did not order that showed up that has God's name in different forms on it, that has all of the archangels, and then also it came with a Virgin Mary pen and a CD of the Virgin Mary, and then also talking about, you know, Christ and everything, all of that in one, in a blue sash, and which blue apparently represents royalty in a spiritual way. So I was like, and so I didn't understand it at first, and it was everything. I mean, it literally, like anything you can cram into this damn coin was on this damn coin. And then it had all of these, the links or the numbers to scripture. And when you read the scripture, it literally says, you know, I am God, I've chosen you, don't question it. And so it's like
Right.
literally, and only that, I got it in the mail and I'm like, what is this? And every time I get a package in the mail that comes from someplace I don't know, because I have a P.O. box and all of my like mail connected to clients or anything, I always have to my P.O. box because I never want to reveal my address because I've had to deal with that in the past when I was in Houston and people showing up and all of this, and it just made my life a little harder. So I have a P.O. box, but this came to my address. So I was like, okay. So anytime I get a package in the mail, it's either from my best friend and she didn't tell me she sent me something, or I think it's like a bomb or something like anthrax. I'm like,
somebody found me.
Right, somebody found me and they're trying to take me out, because I've had that, again, people sending me stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing this. And so when I opened it and I saw it and I was like, what is this? And then all the Virgin Mary pen, it's a golden pen, and then the CD and all that. And I was just like, or it was a silver pen, I think. But Ed saw it and he's like, and I said, look, it's got all the angels' names and all of the Virgin Mary. He's like, that's weird. Don't you think that's weird? And he was weirded out by it. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't realize, it didn't click at the time, but it wasn't until a few days later where I was like, oh, this is the freaking manifestation. I was like, God damn it. I was like, this is the physical manifestation of what I asked for. And you crammed every single thing I asked for in this one package with this coin and these things. And so I got my answer. Now I was like, that's not exactly what I was asking for, you know, y'all. I was actually wanting a physical but that's not what I got. But this is what I got, which was a physical manifestation. So I got that validation. And so it was an interesting thing because I did get the connection. I got the reinforcement, even though I didn't feel like there was a connection. I still operated as if there was. I still refuse to accept that there was a lack of connection. And so what I would say to you is have faith that the connection exists, even though you can't sense it, not because it's not there, but because you're not used to the level of sensing that you've now been summoned and pulled into. So now you just got to go back into, back into kindergarten on the spiritual level of energy to get reacclimated.
Back to basics.
Back to basics. And what happens is when you go back to basics, at that point, you have to remove the excess in your life that you can no longer devote energy to, because all of your energy has to come back to the basics and the elemental things of your work and why you're here, and of caring for yourself, and of self-sustenance. So go back to basics, remove all the excess from your plate, and then get comfortable and start to reacclimate and feel your way through this, because that's the only way you're going to come through it, is feeling through it.
Right. No, yes.
Yeah.
I've been saying that. Actually, I told myself today, okay, Shannon, you need to do at least a 48-hour water fast and start resetting your body. And you need to, we got to go back to this, remembering to,
Well, what I would say is,
what is your purpose? What are you passionate about? I always check in myself about what I'm passionate, and then go back to basics around that.
What are you denying yourself right now? If you really wanted to do something or buy something or experience something right now, and you've not allowed yourself for various reasons, what would you grant yourself? What would you gift yourself right now that you would like, or that you've been desiring?
To go to Vegas.
So then the first,
go to Vegas.
So then go to Vegas. That is your first step towards realignment and acclimation, is to go to Vegas. Yeah.
See, I haven't been anywhere. I haven't, me, I travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you go to Peru, you're on freaking Machu Picchu,
everywhere.
You're up in Himalayas, wherever. Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't went anywhere. And I think that's part of, okay, I got it, guys. I got it.
Yeah. And here's what I will say also.
I need to go and get charged.
Yeah, I would say that needs to happen.
Now, I'm going on a cruise at the end of the month, or end of October. But it's with family, and
that's never enough fun. Yeah, family can be a pain in the ass. No, you need to treat yourself. You need to feel a love for yourself in order to kind of reignite that sense of love for yourself. Because loving yourself isn't just, I'm going to drink clean water and I'm going to take vitamins. Loving yourself is also giving yourself an experience that you desire, but you don't grant because of this reason or that reason. Now, granted, if you have zero of this reason or that reason. Now, granted, if you have zero money, then you shouldn't go on a trip. You should probably work on getting the money first. But if you've got some money, and it's like, I don't want to spend it, or I don't really want to. Right.
This past year has not been, because most of my work, people want to see me in person.
Right, exactly. And so what I would say to you, and again, the universe is summoning to you to change. My friend Sandra Logan has had the same situation. She says, it's just a weird time because people prefer an in-person session. And I'm like, I have had the most financially advantageous year this past year I've ever had. And I'm like, okay. And so it's like, but that's because I changed before the event. And so the event is forcing you to change. You must change. And not only that, we're getting older. As we get older, we can't move around as much. We can't do as much. We can't take on as much. We have to be selective with our energy. And if what is going to help you to reach more people and to heal is through digital connections and not through an in-person session, then so be it. So be it. But it is requiring, because you're going to reach more people this way. And this is the only option for you at this point to advance your need and the desire for your work to continue. And I, last year, even though I had such an advantageous year financially, I also employed like 5 people. So I was paying 5 people to survive through the pandemic so that they could make it through. And that way they wouldn't have to worry about where their next paycheck was going to come from.
Right.
And so I did that because that was my way of, okay, I've been gifted, I've been granted, I've been blessed. I must now return and give that in some way to those who I think would best utilize this or best need it. And I did that. And so you need to now kind of give yourself a permission to operate in a very different way, even if it's not what you're used to. That is part of the frequency change. You know, if you're used to doing, and it's only a physical manifestation and a representation of what you're being summoned to do. You're used to connecting with people on a physical level. And and now the only option for you and what you're being pushed into is to connect on a completely different vibratory state that is what you're not used to and what you're not comfortable with. And people aren't comfortable with that in you either. But this is only a representation, a surface manifestation or representation of what's happening spectrally, energetically. You're being asked to operate from a different level that you're not comfortable with, you're not used to, and you don't think may have value. But it's the same thing with this shift going from physical in person to digital or online. It's the same thing. It may not feel the same. It may not have the intensity that you're used to. It's okay. Make the shift and see what happens, because that's where the faith comes in.
Okay.
And this is what I tell Sandra. Like I told her this like early last year, and I'm like, this is what you need to do. And she wasn't doing enough of it, or she didn't push enough of it. And so now she's like finding that balance. She's getting there, but she's old school. Like you still call, you make the appointment through the phone, and I ain't dealing with like no,
That's
like
me.
you know the world. Yeah,
People
the world
call
is
me
yeah.
and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's like the negotiation starts, you know. Like...
Right. I don't have time for negotiations. I do what I do, either take it or leave it. And if it ain't working for you, then leave it. And that's the end of it. And so I think the universe is giving
because
you.
I was going to make an appointment with you, and I looked on your schedule. It's like, God, I'm very proud of you. You're just way out there. I'm like,
thank you.
You did. You
yeah.
And I think that I think I look at you in that way of, you know, one of my friends he's a billionaire, and he told me, he said, you got to find people when you're going to start creating something. You got to find people that are mentors, people that you can look at that are examples of what you're choosing to create, to understand what you're doing. And I see your platform, how you're being, and how now probably some of it wouldn't work with what I do, but I do see, wow, hey, wait a minute, he's got something here I need to pay attention to, you know. And it's like being in that mentor part of it. It's like, wait, I need to see. He does different talks, different varieties. You appeal to many different people in that way. So even in ourselves, I want to bring it back to the healing part of it, because it is. For me, it is that part of, wait a minute, I'm old school and I'm still, we did it that way. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's like, are you guys, you're wanting me to do what?
Yeah. 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 But I mean, that's the frequency
like,
change.
Okay, you want me to teach to be a mystic, but I don't know how to teach that unless and they're going, yes, you do. And we're going to do it this way. And it's like,
Well, we're doing it right now. You know, we're doing it right now with the Shannon Hour. We're doing it right now. And, you know, every medium that I know doesn't do online, like video readings like this, where they get on live and then they do a reading and try to connect people with their loved ones in spirit. Like, I don't know mediums that do that. And so,
I love it, actually.
Yeah, I love it. But I didn't know, I didn't see a lot of mediums that were doing it. And I was like, oh, like I have to be in person, or and so when I started, I was holding back a lot. And as it's progressed, I've gotten so much more comfortable and more acclimated to it. And now it's like, I don't feel right if I don't do it, because, it's like, why, like John Edwards was just talking, he was just posting that he's about to start touring again. I'm like, I don't think I would ever want to tour unless I'm just doing spiritual teaching. Mediumship is great, and I would definitely want to do platform, but I'm like, for me, it's like, if you look at people like, Robbins, what is his name? Something Robbins.
Tony Robbins?
Tony Robbins. He was stuck in that state of like, everything he did was these massive events that he would put on, and all of these thousands of people at these like stadiums. And when this happened, he had to find a new way of doing this. He created his own company to be able to do this. And now he has a studio space where he's in the middle of the space. There are these massive screens that go up like all the way to the ceiling surrounding him. And he walks around in a circle talking, and one person's highlighted, they come forward and he works with them and he works with them. It is fascinating and amazing. And I'm like, that's what I want. That's how I want to do my thing. I don't want to just travel. But not only that, but also because my partner doesn't really want me gone for too long. And I don't really want to spend time traveling. It's exhausting jumping on a plane and going from place to place to place to place, because I did that.
Unless you're going to the beach
yes,
somewhere.
unless you're going to someplace fun, right? Exactly. But it's exhausting. That's exhausting, moving around and everything, when you can just have it all come to you. And so for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to reinvent the wheel for myself and my genre and my industry to do it differently. You're needing to too, and that's what's required of you.
Hang on a second, Ferny, my nephew. Yeah. Hey, buddy, I'll be done. Just okay. I'll be done. I'll be done soon.
5 minutes.
Okay?
Tell him 5 minutes. Tell him 5 minutes. Tell him
we'll
5
be
minutes.
done in 5 minutes. He has Down syndrome. It's time for it. He's ready for our time now.
Yeah, which is good. Which is and so he is the universe telling you, Shannon,
this.
you've done enough. Now it's time to start.
Oh, no, he's one of the most spiritual beings I have ever. He's an incarnated master, because he would tell you right quick, I am my own man. And he loves me. But if I'm going through something, he knows. If I'm working with somebody that has something dark around, he's in praying. He's praying over there. I mean, literally. He says, I'm going to sing for y'all. I told him I was going to be on here. And he says, so I'm going to do choir. I'm going to pray. And so that's what he's been doing, is playing his guitar and singing and praying. He's very, very gifted. But he does... he has Down syndrome, but I don't see him that way. You know, when people, and I guess maybe that's what I have to see myself as. I don't see him as broken, and maybe I need to stop seeing myself as broken, that I have this brokenness.
Right.
Maybe I'm having this loveness.
Yeah.
Because that's all he's about, is loveness. Starbucks, which he calls Duck Butt. I love that. Duck Butt. We got to go to Duck Butt. His hair done. He's a Gemini, so you know that. But he is one of my greatest spiritual teachers. And he teaches me a state of love, there is no expectation. There is none.
Yeah.
He just loves. I've only one time ever been around him, and he told me, she's not a good person. She's go to hell.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa. I'm serious, Ferny. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
And he just met her, and you know, it really thrilled me. Because he doesn't say that about people. He would say, "Oh, he's a good person. He's a good man. He's a good man." He'll tell me. He'll tell me, "I love me. I love you." And I always think that is so interesting that he always says, "I love me, and I love you." It's like he loves himself first, and then he loves you. And I think that's part of my greatest teachings with him. He teaches me every day. It is so amazing sometimes. Yeah. I just think, okay, Ferny, how did I end up? Here's this master in disguise, you know. He chose to come in this way to explore the humanness from this way. He's like, okay. Life is good. Everything's going to be okay. He'll tell me everything's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I'm like, okay.
Because they know.
God,
yeah.
He, you know, Ferny, he talks to the angels. He'll get over there and talk to Jesus. He's having a conversation. He'll have a conversation like me and you having a conversation with somebody on the other side. And he you know, people with that with Down syndrome, they have the thick tongue, and so it's their speech
Hmm.
is a
The
little
speech is
off.
little, yeah.
But when he's talking to Christ, it is pure, clean. He's telling him, he'll say, if he says, Fernie, I'm going to pray for you, you better bet. He's praying, and he will pray all the way through. He'll pray all night. He'll pray. It's like going through ancestral prayer, what it's called, where
Hmm.
they pray, you pray all night. He prays all
Hmm.
night,
Yeah, it's like chanting. It's like mantra or chanting. Yeah.
all night long for you
Mm.
until he feels you're okay.
Yeah. I love that.
It is
I love it.
for me. He is. I think he's been. I know he's been one of my greatest spiritual teachers, and I've had some amazing, amazing people. And I do want to say this: one of the things that showed up for me lately, and I noticed this, and I used to be this person. I've taken so many classes and so many classes, and I come to realize, wait a minute, I didn't master any of them. I
Yes.
just took them so that I can have the certificate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I look at myself now after 30 years of being walking my path and being in this place. It's like this whole new, it's like, Shannon, you're supposed to be like this and this, and the spirit's going, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. I know someone who literally can fill an entire wall with certifications and like, oh, I'm a minister at the church of such and such. And
Such an,
there's
I,
a huge lack of spiritual wisdom and true connection that exists for this person. And I'm like, how the hell did you pass every one of those things? 'Cause I only have like
that's
one
right.
certification, and I have one certification that I got years ago. I never posted it, didn't care for it. It's just like, it's whatever. You don't need it. You don't need it because if you have it integrated and you've gained the wisdom and you've actually mastered it or in the process of mastering, you don't have to prove who you are. People will know you miles away and they'll say, that's who that is. Or
Right?
there's something about him, and they will recognize it, they will see it, they will feel it when they're in your presence, when they connect with you, when they communicate with you. Even on your
Yeah.
worst days, even on your bad days, they may still experience some aspect of that. So before we go, because we need to wrap up so you can go do what you got to do, but I wanted to ask you about my vision. Did you see my post about the golden woman?
No, I didn't. I didn't get,
So yesterday, this happened yesterday, and I was like, what is that? Sometimes when I've gotten visions or I've gotten seen some things that are coming down in the future, like if I'm falling asleep at night and I'm starting to lay down and I'm starting to like just settle into my body, I'm in that in between state, and then it hits me and it's there, and then I open my eyes because I'm like, oh shit, I gotta write this down. And I was like, nah, a podcast about prophetic dreams and prophetic experiences and the difference between just being psychic and like being a prophet or being a prophetic vessel. And so I just finished that podcast, and I was listening to it because I wanted to hear what I was talking about to make sure that it was all people could comprehend what I was talking about. And I was sitting in my chair here actually, and I was just like there, and I was just sitting there looking outside of the mountains, and then I started to doze off because I didn't sleep yesterday night because I was watching the storm coverage on the news, and so I started to doze off a little bit, and I was in that in between state. And then two things popped up. The first vision was something connected to my best friend, which I was like, okay, I gotta let her know when I'm done. And then the second time, I was doing it again, and all of a sudden, like just right in front of me in my mind, and it was as if I was in a scene. There was this woman, and she was wearing very similar garb to the Virgin Mary. So very similar, but it wasn't blue. She didn't even have like skin color like we do. She was completely bathed in gold. Everything she was wearing was gold or a version of gold. And then her skin was luminescent and it was gold. And I mean, it literally like everything was solid gold. And I saw her for a few seconds, and her beauty and radiance completely caught me off guard, and I was surprised because I didn't expect to see that right when I was like dozing off. And so I saw her, and I woke up and I opened my eyes, and I was like, whoa. And I was like, what is that? And I was just caught off by her beauty and just the luminescence of it. And then I was like, okay, what is that? Now I don't really know who to refer to about that or how. And I've been looking online, and the only thing that I've seen, which just happens to be the thing, is when people are saying, "Oh, it's the Virgin Mary," or it's an apparition of the Virgin Mary, and I'm like, okay, no, what is this? Like, I don't know if that's actually this or something else. So, what do you think?
That's a being. And they're like, my people are going, he's not going to find her online. Because she is it's the, it's like the representation of the cosmic mother or the feminine God part. It's like Christ consciousness, but you have also the feminine side of Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
And if you ever experience that energy of the Christ consciousness, he comes gold to me. He comes in that energy, and he's so beautiful in that same way, even in that feminine energy. Okay, slow down. Okay. Ferny, she's going to come and whisper the truth to you. Wow, wow. Hold on, guys. Too much at once. It's time. She is going to come and whisper the truth. And even why we're having this connection again, when we start coming together, there's some reason, there's something that's coming, there's something that's being created that's there. She's coming to give you the truth so you can start speaking it. And you do have to have faith, and you do have to have the stamina and the feeling secure about what is going to be spoken. That's absolute knowing. She says not truth, because truth can be, she says it is absolute knowing. And for you to be able to walk in this space and be able to give it, even you're going to go through this more transition of speaking truth, speaking this knowing, speaking what we have been. Wow. Okay. Whew. Let me come through. Let me go. It's like the wheels of time have shifted. It's like this timeline. We're shifting again, and this timeline has come. And we're moving more into that light space, if you will. But she is the one that speaks the truth. And as the truth or the knowledge starts coming in for us to, it's like separating that older part of us that we've been working with and dealing with and moving with. This truth, this knowledge helps us, guide us, move it through into this space. The way I'm seeing it is like this it's this state of grace. And how every aspect of it, every part of it will be presented with grace. And it's like being the lighthouse or being brought through, or in this state, it is the faith. And it is that place of surrendering, just letting that information come, or that the knowing come, even if it's like Christ being sacrificed, or you're being in that place, you're just speaking truth. She said we had came here before and we spoke truth, and we've been through the same cycle. We're doing the same cycle, but this time the truth will be heard. It's like calling out the trumpets, or lighting the candles, or whatever you want to call it. She says, but the truth and the knowing will be revealed. The knowing will be revealed. And it is a whisper, it is a tone, it's a sound, it's like this inner knowing that has been encapsulated or is being brought forth now.
Mm.
And out of the darkness that we've been walking through for many incarnations, you know, we've been doing this, and anybody that's listening to us right now truly and if came here for this moment and these moments in time that we're in, and we knew what we were getting into, we knew what we were coming for.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the part that she's going to be whispering, because that is part of your journey, is to speak the knowing. And some people are not going to like the knowing.
Yeah.
And she is incredible. It's you're really stepping into that place of, you know, when people say the Christ consciousness, you can call it that, but it's even a more, it is the true divine experience of our soul.
Right.
And I'm asking, I asked them, it's like, is that Ferny's higher self? And it's like, yes, it is an aspect, but it's an aspect of all of us.
Mm-hmm. Which is what I felt from her, because I felt like she was something more than what I've accessed before. And for me, Aja is a very unique energy. She was just on a completely different level that I just like I could not even like get on the same page with. Yeah.
It's like if you, it's, I don't know how to, oh yes I do. She's the bride. If I, that's the word that came. She's the bride.
Yeah.
And the groom.
Well, when I asked Aja who this was, I was told that this was the closest thing that I can understand to it from a human perspective would be like you've got the Christ and then you've got the Mary Magdalene. It's the opposite.
That's
it's
right.
The other aspect of it, and it's the part of it that is hidden beneath the it's the part that is hidden beneath all of the male dominated energy of, like, you know, control and dominance. So it's almost like and I was like, okay, well, I mean, that doesn't explain all of it to me, but okay. But I mean, I'm just going to call her GW, Grace and Wisdom, because I don't even know what to call her yet. And I'm just like, look, girl, she didn't leave me a card, so I don't know what to call her. So I'm just going to call her GW because
yes.
I mean, I'm just going to have to be patient
and you're going to have
more
of an encounter with her. I think more that maybe even more as we explore over the next 2 weeks, and when we come back to explore again, or this healing the trauma or healing in that space. It's like there'll be more knowledge.
Yeah.
You will have more. It's like they're making a joke. It's like, you can't go back now. You've done surrendered. You done went over the cliff. You're in the free fall. You're free falling. And
it's freaking me out. It's freaking me out because, I mean, with all of that also comes all of the hate that comes from it and the people who are going to persecute you. And I'm just like, oh.
Always,
yeah.
Ferny, to remember, it has nothing to do with you.
I know.
Nothing. And that is the place, because it is their own darkness that they're working through. When you hear truth, and you know, you've experienced this many times, when you speak truth and spirit speaks truth, and they get all pissed off and butthurt and all kind of call you all kind of names, and then they go away, and then they come back and apologize, and they say, you know, you were right.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back into the free fall, or that faith of surrender and knowing that everything is okay. That whatever is put in your path, whatever beaten, whatever rough rocks we go across, whatever it is, we're still going to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
We are going, it's the, what do you call it, the wheels in motion. That's what she was saying. The wheels are in motions, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Even if you're in this lifetime, in this physical body, or out of this physical body, the soul journey will continue. It's something we signed up with, something that we went to be. And we will, as a creation, it's just not humanity, it's the whole creation that is being, wow, makes more sense. I love talking to you. You make me get depressed. Like, okay, I get it.
Well, I think I'm honored.
Because I know you understand what I'm getting.
Yeah,
I
getting
guess
out
it's
and trying to.
Sometimes I just don't have somebody that understands. Oh, wait a minute! I'm talking to this person, and I'm not schizophrenic. I know they're here. I know what I'm getting, and I know what is there, and I know it's truth because I sit and watch, and I see the evidence, and I see what happens, and I'm playing this out. But the wheels have already been set into motion, and there's no going back.
Yeah.
We can't stop it this time.
All right, then I guess we're gonna have to get Jiffy Lube membership because I'm gonna need an oil change pretty damn soon. That's what I'm gonna need. So.
But it's that place of like, oh my God, I think some part of me feels spiritually fatigued.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's connected to not so much as the spiritual fatigue. It's a spiritual frequency fatigue, which means we're trying to operate in a new frequency through old patterns of function, and it's exhausting because it's like we're like not going with what we're supposed to. So it's like we have to force ourselves into that next frequency, which is what we're doing. This whole conversation was a process of us realigning with ourselves. And then everybody that's been watching this in one way or another, there's something that's been going on or that's happening and that's going to happen for them as well in this process of alignment. And it all happens with just the moment in which you acknowledge what is and you speak it into physical existence. And every person who hears it resonates as a beacon of energy and says, holy shit, now I know what he's talking about. I remember this too. Oh, this is true. And then it goes out again. Yeah.
And then the expansion starts happening and it's like, okay, I got it. I got it. I know what I'm supposed to do. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was like, something big is coming because I need to make the connection with Ferny, and I need to work in that energy and see where this is and where we're going.
Yeah. Well, I've been hearing from all of the spiritual masters who own that mastery. I've heard from them in the last few weeks because they're all having similar experiences. But the people who are just kind of coasting along in their spirituality, who do not have the integration of the wisdom and the mastership, I ain't heard nothing from. So I know, like, oh, they're picking up on all these things. And so I was like, okay, I know who's at that level. I know who I can, and so, yeah. All right, well, let's end it now so that way you can go and have fun in your me time. So I love you.
I love you too.
We're going to do this again now that you have the pad and now that you're all set up properly and now that we can help others in maneuvering through some of this.
Yes, because let me tell you, I feel like I need to put on my spiritual waders because I am like this deep in it.
The floaties, you need the floaties. Yeah, the floaties.
Life jackets, snorkels.
And you've been, all right, babe. Well, go on. I love you.
I love you too.
All right, baby. Bye.